Hello, today I'd like to review Moonshine Inc. As the name says, it's a game that puts you in the shoes of a moonshiner trying to make ends meet. Special thanks go to Cloud Beta for the review key. This review is based on about 45 hours of gameplay with the 1.03 patch, and all opinions are solely the authors. You're all busy people, so let me answer your most pressing question first. Are you going to enjoy it? The 30-second spiel is that this game is all about producing different types of liquor, starting with moonshine and going on to brandy, whiskey and vodkas. You'll be manipulating all the steps in the process, and the game will allow you to be fully hands-on with tweaking the various parameters. You'll be able to unlock new recipes and equipment to improve the variety and quality of liquors you can produce. This is a game that will appeal to players who enjoy crafting type games, and it's particularly strong in allowing you to tinker and experiment. If that sounds like something you like, then stay with me and I'll delve deeper into the details. The central aspect of the game is the crafting of different types of liquor. Each recipe has a flavor profile that you have to match, and there's a large number of different recipes that you can craft. Each recipe has a recommended set of ingredients, and you can combine up to 3 and fiddle with the proportions to get the flavor profile you want. The power of the yeast enhances the flavors, and you can choose from up to 4 different types that you unlock by research. Then comes fermentation, where you'll choose a subtype of yeast and temperature to be used. There's 3 types of sub-yeast options, and each one affects the flavor and maximum sugar content in different ways. You can unlock temperature controls that will again allow you to alter the flavor profile. Distillation is the next step. Your fermented liquor is broken down into a number of bottles. Each has a different alcohol content and flavor profile. You can affect the final mix by throwing away different bottles, and as always, you're aiming to fit the profile of the liquor you're trying to make. Adjusting the temperature will change the number and contents of the bottles that distillation produces. The final step is bottling, where you set the price and get to choose a name for your product before shipping it. You can also make a final adjustment to the alcohol content of the brew by diluting it with water to reduce the alcohol, or later on unlocking the ability to increase the content by adding spirits to the final mix. You'll play a campaign that takes place across several maps. In each you'll find 3 selling points, and the preferences will affect how fast different liquors sell at. And each tracks how much of each liquor you've sold. Keep selling the same booze and people will get tired of it, so variety is the spice of life. You'll also be given main and side missions that require you to provide and sell different types of liquor, and you can find random encounters as you make deliveries. Liquors that better match the flavor profile of the recipe sell for more, and some missions will have minimum requirements. But of course you're engaging in illegal activities. That means you might draw attention from the police. There's a global alert level, and if you hit level 4, a timer will start and the police will raid you when it reaches 0. Higher global alert levels will also make random encounters more negative, so selling will become more difficult. The store and selling points also track alert levels locally. If you sell enough liquor, the alert level will rise, and if you max out local alert, that will raise the global alert level. Same with the store, certain ingredients will raise the local alert, and again this can raise the global alert level. Ultimately, there's no way to stop the alert levels rising or reduce them, and at some point you'll have to move to the next map. You may have already picked up on this, but what sets this game apart from most others of the same class is that you're given a large amount of choice in how you arrive at the desired liquor. Most crafting games have you painting by the numbers, do this, then that, then this. Typically those steps are very gamified, and it's obvious that you're following a set of artificial steps, even if you're not necessarily painting by the numbers. I'm not personally knowledgeable on the topic of brewing, but the steps do seem to correspond to how liquor is actually made, or at least they're plausible enough that you do feel as if you're making liquor, rather than just following a set of gamified instructions. This might not seem like much, but keeping a focus on reality does do wonders for the immersiveness of a game. Having the flavor profile track through the entire process of making the liquor, that's quite a lot in linking the individual steps in the process. But even better, it also means that you'll have a massive amount of choice and the ability to make your own innovations. For instance, what ingredients you chose in the first step affects the flavor profile in every step afterwards, but you can also substitute different ingredients of the same class. So while the recipes do suggest ingredients, the game does not lock you into those, and sometimes it's actually better to use different ingredients. The only thing that matters is the flavor profile. You have a huge variety of choices you can make, and every choice you make affects the end product, and quite often you'll take steps that might take you further away from the goal right now, but will help you further down the line. For example, for liquors that require high levels of alcohol, you might choose to go for stronger flavors during fermentation by using stronger ingredients and yeast. Then bring the flavor closer to the end product and raise the alcohol level by discarding some of the low alcohol bottles. Alternatively, you can try and match the flavor first, then add spirits during bottling to raise the alcohol levels. Unlocking recipes is done in two ways. One is to brew known recipes. If you do that well enough, that will provide hints to nearby recipes. 3 hints and the new recipe will be unlocked for you to craft. The other less obvious and undocumented way is to simply experiment. When you choose an ingredient, you'll see a list of known and unknown recipes that have similar flavor profiles. Once brewed, that will unlock the recipe. Some recipes require specialized equipment, and you can unlock them by spending research points. These are acquired by brewing recipes, but you get the most points the first time you brew one. So the game is encouraging you to try as many brews as possible. Better equipment and experienced brewers makes it easier to make higher quality liquor. How you arrive at the target flavor profiles and alcohol content is ultimately your choice, and the game allows you to set your own path. The brewing aspects of the game that form the core of the gameplay are done very well, and will engage players who like that type of tinkering and experimentation. Unfortunately, the rest of the gameplay does fall a little short of the high standards set so far. In contrast to the plethora of choice in brewing, the campaign is primarily about fulfilling main and side missions. Research is limited in each map, and that in turn restricts what recipes you can brew in each map. But at the same time, the best way to make the next campaign map easier is to research as many recipes as possible, because many times side missions will be difficult to fulfill if you haven't done that. The recipe map itself is restrictive, and there's many times when I was very frustrated in the early campaign maps, because getting high quality brews is difficult early on, and the map forces you down very restrictive paths when trying to discover new recipes. Some are simply not accessible without being given recipes or hints by side quests. Fortunately, it's not a critical issue, because you can just experiment to find new recipes, and I'd recommend that method rather than trying to follow the map. Having as much money as possible when starting the next mission also helps a lot, because rebuilding your equipment costs a fair bit. But at the same time, the way alert levels can't be reduced means that you'll eventually have to move on. To be fair, it's not particularly difficult to work around these restrictions once you've understood them, but it is also true that it significantly restricts your choices about how you go about learning the game. When you start playing, it can feel frustrating, particularly because the campaign missions are not trivial. That's not to say that the campaign missions are not well done, but forcing players down specific paths does undermine the choice that we saw in the brewing system. Pacing is also noticeable, and not in a good way unfortunately. Brewing large batches can take many days, particularly for fermentation, and most of the time you're just waiting for that to finish. And since many of the best equipment are designed for very large batches, the further you progress, the more waiting there will be. Even if you stick to the smallest equipment, it will still take days for each batch to finish fermenting. The game only has an 8x speed acceleration, and that means players have to wait for minutes in real time. It is possible to have more brewing setups, so you can do multiple recipes at the same time. That does make things a bit better, but fundamentally players have long periods where they're doing nothing, then the occasional bit of activity when a step in the process finishes. This pacing issue is a big part of why I haven't finished the campaign yet. There are still some bugs with the UI and the presentation. Sometimes the details of how well a brew is selling will change depending on what other brew you were looking at previously. Then they'll change depending on whether the game is paused or not. This is probably the UI not updating the figures in the pop-ups. Some employee bonuses like shorter cleaning or repair times don't seem to be implemented. This should not be the same, but again it could just be an UI issue. So it is true that there are still some presentation bugs still there, but in my experience the developers have been responsive to bug reports and issuing fixes. If you are very sensitive to things like this, then it may be best to hold off for now, but keep an eye on how the game gets polished. A sandbox option would help address many of these issues, and so would reducing the reliance on missions. The campaign could then be tweaked to become a tutorial for the game. The new mode would require adding some way to decrease alert levels, maybe some kind of reduction over time if you haven't used a selling spot for a while, plus enhancing the police system so you're not looking at a game over when it reaches level 4. Doubling down on the flavor profile idea would be great too. The brewing system allows you to have an infinite number of flavors, but the recipe system means that you're essentially restricted to a few specific ones that the devs have implemented. Instead of making pre-existing recipes the goal, what if you reversed that and had players creating the recipes instead? So as you experiment and mess around, you might find a flavor profile that you think is good. then you might save that as a recipe. This could work very similarly to the system already in place to save templates after a successful brew, but would add dynamism to the brewing system and might lead to players sharing their recipes in places like Discord. Adding dynamism and more detail to customer tastes would give the flavor profiles more purpose. Instead of just going for brandy premium, they might have a particular flavor profile that they enjoy. It's then up to you to decide what the right brew to fit that profile is, and the closer you get to that, the better it will sell. Then perhaps also divide the customer base according to different properties, each with their own preferred flavor profiles. So maybe the young prefer a sweeter drink, while older folks like their dash of bitterness. This will mirror the way brands position themselves in real life, and give further purpose to the flavor profile system. Moonshine Inc is a game that has a lot to appeal to players who enjoy tinkering, innovating, and coming up with their own solutions. The brewing system is the reason why I was drawn to the game in the first place, and I'm happy to say that it's a great foundation for the game. The campaign and the pacing don't quite complement the flexibility of the brewing system, but the game as a whole has a lot going for it, and a bit more polish would improve it further. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified when new videos come out. See you soon.